helpful. This is a emergency faculty application, or mobile application for faculty members at George Mason. This should take between 30 and 60 minutes, maybe even a little bit shorter since we've done this before, so we have plenty of time to practice beforehand. This is a usability study which is a mock-up of a rough mock-up of our prototype. That's yet to be finalized, so we've been taking your feedback, we've made revisions, and we just want to get your insight into your thought process.
Okay. So what would you expect to happen now that you've opened the phone?
I think I would expect for it to take me to some kind of a menu where I can figure out what my next step might be, give me some sort of indication of where to go.
Whether or not this is a real emergency, whether or not I want a tutorial about how to do the application, or I want to go through the training. That's what I have to decide.
Both 911 and campus security. Some schools, I think it actually is 911 goes to campus, but I see that would be good to notify both if that was appropriate. Texting, okay, as an.
So I click training. There's active shooter protocols. I guess I would click protocols. Although there were lots of pictures there, and I'm not sure what all those pictures meant. I don't know if is that a good thing or a bad thing.
So, a simulation of a situation, I suppose. All right, so fire, earthquake, tornado, active shooter is the one that's available to me now. But I can see where the others would be able to go. I don't know if there was something other than those four where you would go, but such as an other or whatever. But okay, so we have the active shooter. What's the simulation? I guess will walk me through it. The protocol will explain what we would do. So the quick guide. If you can't fire or flee, lock the doors. The text is a little small, but I'm sitting back further than I would from my phone. It would probably be closer to my face, especially if I'm hiding, or barricade the door if that's cover windows.
Good though. What would you think the difference between those two options are?
Well, I guess the quick guide might be an overview if I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to use the training or not, whereas the full protocol would be like, okay, I'm definitely going to use this training, and that's where I would go.
Okay, great.
Now we're going to go into the emergency part.
Where's that? Oh.
Yeah.
The part that says
and do
emergency.
phone calls. We're going to focus on phone calls for this task.
Okay. This isn't going to actually call somebody, is it?
No.
Okay. Do you want that second? Do you want a second? If it's an active shooter, I can understand why you'd want people to think twice before calling, because, okay. And I see why you would bring this up right after you made your selection. This is good. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
So if I'm calling 911 and it says, yes, please call, did you guys choose to put active shooter here just because that's the most likely scenario, or is there something in my history that because the emergency that I'm calling 911 might not be about an active shooter?
Right. We focused our scope on active shooter so that we just narrow it down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Active shooter simulation, so I kind of know what area I'm in. I would imagine that if it were the fire, it would say fire simulation at the top. So that was very helpful in keeping me on track on where I am. So I'm going to click on the simulation button, and now I finally think that I'm going to see some cases or some way to interact or understand what that active shooter situation and my response should be, what that looks like. Okay, so it is what I expected. There's a video that I can watch if I want to. And then what I didn't expect is that there would be a little quiz. And so I'm going to read the quiz. If you hear gunshots and cannot leave, what do you do? And my choices are A, run from the building, B, barricade the door, turn off the light, C, scream for help. So I remember from the protocol list, if I cannot leave, should not run from the building. I should barricade the door and turn off the light. So I'm going to click on that one. And what I expect to see is maybe some feedback on my answer. So I'm going to click on it, and it says, oh, correct. So I did get some feedback. And I'm going to click on, what I didn't expect is that my answer would be highlighted, which is very helpful so I know what my correct answer was. I'm going to click on the continue button, and I would expect that there would be maybe another quiz or another test of my knowledge of the protocols. So I'm going to click on continue. Oh, and I got a congratulations, you have successfully completed the training simulation. I am curious about is clicking the back button to see what happens if there's a wrong answer. So I'm going to go back click on the back button and go back to the quiz, and I'm going to click, let's say, run from the building just to see what would happen. I would expect that it would tell me that I have a wrong answer, and what I would hope from just being an educator that I would have some way of understanding why my answer was wrong, that the app would give me. So I'm going to click on run from the building, and it says incorrect. So this is a good thing. The correct answer was in green, and the wrong answer is in red. So that kind of signals to me that there was something bad here, and it does say incorrect. And then I get a chance to try again or review the protocol, which I think is a really good feature because if I don't remember it. So I'm going to click on review the protocol.
So where am I? So I did the training. I did the tutorial, then I did the training. I just finished that. So now emergency, I assume there is an emergency, so here's what I need to do. So I have two options, calling 911. Okay, so here's in case I bump it, I'm not sure. I suppose if the shooter was in the room and I don't know where that screen came from. If the shooter was in the room and I didn't want to talk, this is where I could back out of it. If I did hit call, then they could hear. So it seems like when I'm hovering over this, after a moment, it goes to the next screen.
Yeah.
Hovering over this, after a moment, it goes to the next screen.
Yeah. Actually, in here, we activate one function is that once they click the please call 911, and it also leads them to the quick guide of the protocol so that they can know that, okay, now since I'm talking with the police, I can also looking at the procedure of how
Okay.
I can.
I see. Okay. So then there's a map available. So this is where I could. All right. I can call. There's a map. Presumably, I know what building I'm in. So let's say I was in the Johnson Center. If I click on that, so it appears to be giving me my location, which would be picked up off of GPS, I suppose, and the shooter's location based on reports that other people had given. So yes, please let me text. Oh, okay. So this is sending a predefined set of messages as opposed to me having to actually type it in. So I could account for how many students are absent. I'm not sure what if it means absent from the class. They could say, well, there's 30 in this class, and if I say there's 2 absent, you would assume there might be 28 still in the room. Students outside the room, I assume, I don't know whether that's out of my 28 or that's just any students that I can tell are out in the hall or something like that. But that would give, I would make the assumption that I'm saying, or can I tell if there are students outside the room, regardless of whether they're my students or someone else? That's what I would assume there. Injured. That seems pretty straightforward if I know that there's some. Have I seen the assailant? I guess this would toggle between yes and no. Gunshots heard. Is the room in lockdown? Meaning I locked it down, I guess. As opposed to they've done an automated lockdown of the card swipe access rooms or something like that to where someone can't get in. Some buildings have that, some don't. So, right, skip. Oh, okay. So I guess this is where I could actually text in, as I normally would, click in the field. I don't see where the field is, but there would be a field, click in it, and it would let me start typing and conducting a conversation with 911.
Do you consider this app to be a viable replacement to the current emergency response training for faculty at GMU?
Given that I have no idea what that is, yes.